Whenever we think of marketing, we often think of the different types of advertisements or promotions we're bombarded with on a daily basis, whether that be TV commercials, radio advertisements, or billboards that we see driving down the street. Or how about those fancy packaging that you see when you walk into the store? Now, also the placement of the packaging in a grocery store is often a form of promotion. Think about it this way. You walk into the grocery store. Where do you see all the sugary cereals that generally appeal to the young child? They're going to be at eye level with the child. What about those heart-healthy cereals that are directed more towards the older folks? Those are going to be at eye level with individual adults. That's all considered marketing. Marketing is a way of adding value to a product. And when all those things I just described are typically thought of as business marketing is the means of promoting or adding value of a product after it's been produced and going to the consumer. So that's typically business marketing, as it goes basically just from the production facility to the consumer. All of that in between is marketing. But whenever we talk about agricultural marketing, it encompasses business marketing and so much more. Agricultural marketing is typically thought of as from the farm gate to the consumer, or anything that adds value to an agricultural good. Agricultural marketing is the process of adding value to an agricultural good. And those businesses that are involved in that are called agribusinesses. Agribusinesses are those businesses involved in the marketing of ag products. Those businesses, all they are trying to do is add value to those goods. All an agribusiness does is basically adds value to an agricultural good. This is often done by farming, storage, transportation, processing, wholesaling, marketing, and retailing. All of these different processes add value to an agricultural good. Let's take storage, for example. So, a farmer may decide to store their products in, say, a silo, for example, and wait for the commodity prices to increase. Well, if they're going to store their product and wait for those commodity prices to increase, they're basically storing that product to allow it to add value. Transportation is another good one. Transportation adds value to the commodity by moving it from an area with low demand to an area with high demand. So if we look at, say, cattle, the cattle that are currently on a ranch or a feeder cattle, or if we look at weaned heifers or weaned steers, those weaned heifers and weaned steers are not worth all that much on the ranch. Typically, they're not. Typically, what you have to do is you have to haul them to an auction barn or sell them to somebody else and transport them to another area. So if you take those weaned steers that you're going to sell them here in a couple of weeks and you transport them to an auction barn, the demand at the auction barn is typically a lot higher than the demand for those same animals on that individual ranch. So by transporting those animals to that auction barn, you're increasing the demand for those animals, increasing the value of those animals by simply transporting them to an auction barn. So all of these different aspects all add value to an agricultural good. And that's what ag marketing truly is the forward movement of agricultural products and adding value to those agricultural products as they go. Now, one thing separates agriculture from just about every other industry, and that's that biological lag. So, in agriculture, as we all know, because it is a biological process, it may take months or years from the time a farmer or rancher decides to produce that good until it's actually ready for delivery or ready for consumption from a consumer. So let's take something that's pretty simple like corn. If you plant corn, it takes many months for that corn from the time it's planted until it's harvested. And then from there, it might be stored before it's ever delivered to a corn mill or to anything like that. Every agricultural product often takes months for it to develop. If we look at livestock, if we have a calf born today, it'll take upwards of 30 months, so that's 2.5 years, before that animal is ever slaughtered for beef. So it often takes months or years from the time that that farmer decides to grow that crop or raise that animal until it's delivered to the consumer. Fruits and nuts are another great example of this. It often takes nuts several years, upwards of 6 or 7 years, from the time, say, a pecan tree is planted until you can start harvesting pecans or walnuts or anything like that off of those trees that were planted 7 years ago. So because of that timeline, the producer may decide in, say, 2018 that I'm going to plant pecan trees this year. And it'll be 2025 before they ever start receiving a yield off of those trees. So that's that biological lag. It takes, because of the biological process of growing these products, it'll often take months or years before that product is ever fully developed and ready for delivery. And because of this, our ag markets continuously are being adjusted for orders and products. As those products are being developed and the demand for a product may be very high today, but 3 years from now, whenever that product is actually being ready for delivery, that demand may not be as high. So we have to constantly adjust our agricultural markets for the amount of orders coming in, the amount of products that are there, and the current demand of that agricultural good, which all adds to the agricultural marketing of those products, making it often very difficult or very complicated as we're dealing with agricultural markets.